Hey everyone, Raelan here. In today's video, I have Aron with me, and they are going to be sharing a bit of their health journey. They were diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome about a year ago, but have had it for a couple of years longer than that and have made incredible progress. Aron, as you told me, you're calling yourself optimistically about 90% recovered, which is really exciting. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, thank you as well. I'm really excited. A little nervous, but excited.
I have so much gratitude for the people that do this because I imagine it's not your first choice of things that you wanted to do today. But I know that these chats and these interviews, people tell me how much they help them, and it's so inspiring, and so yeah, a lot of gratitude for you for doing this.
Totally. Well, I myself have benefited from your videos, so I'm happy to help out as well.
And you are also a fellow Canadian, correct?
I am. Yes. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, actually from Ontario, but I've been here for about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not too far
Excellent.
off from, I think, where you're from.
Yeah, I used to go to Vancouver a lot. I have a lot of family and friends there. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is.
So how did this all begin for you, or what was happening leading up to your health challenges? Can you take us back a bit?
Yeah, so it was about 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago. For me, it was definitely a series of stressors, and in some cases, just chronic stress that I'd been experiencing periodically for quite a few years. I think just kind of culminated, and I think the decline was pretty fast. I was doing okay, and then over the course of about 3-ish months, there was a pretty steep decline in my health and my ability and my stamina, and was suddenly very, very fatigued and couldn't do a whole lot, and battling just wicked insomnia. But yeah, it really happened quickly, and it was shocking because you don't expect that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like most of us, that probably was, shocking, I think is the best word for it. It's really confusing and I think scary. What were you thinking when all this was happening?
At first, it's I'll book some time off work. I'll take a long vacation and rest, and I'll be able to go back in a week. But it just wasn't like that, and it was I've experienced burning out in the past, where you do need to take a pretty significant step back from what you're doing, but I have always been able to bounce back from it pretty quickly. But this was just something else, and it was scary, kind of starting to realize that okay, taking 7 days off of work, or however many days off of work, and resting, this isn't gonna be enough, and then the realization that I still have to go to work, I still have to take care of myself, I still have to do X, Y, and Z, but I have no energy to do any of it. I'm just exhausted, and and all the other symptoms, experiencing head fog, and I had chronic headaches as well. It was quite a few months of kind of processing just kind of realizing that okay, this isn't gonna go away quickly. This is something that I might be dealing with for a really long time. At first I didn't know what it was exactly, but it was kind of, I think, a process of acceptance, I would say. Pretty long process to kind of accept there was something bigger going on in me, that I wasn't just going to be able to get a good night's sleep or a couple good nights sleep and recover. Yeah.
Imagine that's something that a lot of us think when this happens to us, because virtually everyone I talked to before they started having these health problems, they were chronically stressed or running themselves into the ground. So I think it's just a natural thing to think, I just got to rest. Okay, this makes sense. I've been overdoing it. I haven't really been taking care of myself. I've been under a lot of pressure. Then you rest and rest and rest. It's what is happening?
Yeah.
And for some of us, the more we rest, we start getting even worse.
Yeah.
Which is just what is going on?
It's really confusing, and I think that I think most of us are, raised and like live in, like I can speak to my own culture, but like a culture of like productivity and like getting up and working and doing this and that. And like all of a sudden it's like your body is like, no, no, we're not doing this anymore. But there's still all these responsibilities and I don't know, it's like, it's disorienting and like confusing. And yeah, I was swimming at the time. Like I was doing a lot of swimming, like a couple days a week at the pool, and really, really enjoying that. And I had to stop. I like pretty much just like cold turkey. Like I would go back here and there and being like, oh, it's been a couple weeks. I've rested for a couple weeks. Let me see how it goes. I'll do fewer laps and see how it goes. But it never went well. Like a mourning process, like realizing, okay, it's going to be probably long term that I won't be able to do certain things that I love. So there's a bit of like grieving over those things as well, which is a challenging part of, I think, like a chronic condition. But yeah.
The grief piece is huge. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we all even realize it in the moment just because there's so much going on, but there is a lot of loss. I'm wondering too, I think for you, were there things that you had tied into your identity that you had to stop doing? Because I think that's another level that we sometimes have to deal with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like very much felt like a lot of like my value and a lot of like my self-worth even was related with like physical activity. Being someone who could like push myself physically and like just generally just enjoying time to myself in the pool or hiking or doing whatever. I've just always enjoyed that. It's just always been a really big part of my identity, like being able to use my body. I think I like described it as disorienting already, but I'll say that again. It's disorienting having that. It's almost like having it taken away from you. It's like like having to re-identify yourself or like re-establish what self-worth is for you, outside of, like for me it was outside of using my body in like certain physical ways. And I think that's a long process. Yeah, it does really like kind of strip away some of your identity, and I think that's really, really, really challenging part of going through something as big as this.
I imagine that's why, or one of the many reasons why going through something like this changes quite a few of us. I don't know what your experience has been, but when you strip away all these parts of your identity and you're just left with just you and taking a hard look in the mirror and just seeing who you really are and what pieces of those identity, did you even choose? And did you actually even, you might have thought that you liked them. But when you take time to actually look at it, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is actually how I want to be living, or is this really important to me? So I think that's how it shifts, one of the ways that it shapes us as we move forward, because we have to re-identify who we are.
Yeah. I very much identify with what you're saying. Like, yeah, there's like, I feel like I spent a lot of time thinking about like what I expected of myself, like when I was healthy prior to chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, what was I expecting of myself and why? And like, in what ways did I feel valuable and why? And, a lot of the answers to those questions are rooted in, ways that I was raised, and probably ways that lots of us are raised in, like productivity and like pushing myself, achieving certain things that were suddenly, when I got sick, like suddenly not achievable things. They were not realistic goals. And yeah, I think that it's almost like parsing apart like what like why did I value these things in the first place, and is it possible to value something else? Like, is it possible to feel like a valuable, worthy human being without being able to push myself physically, without being able to be like a productive person? Like, is that the most valuable thing there is? And the answer that I came to is no. Like, I don't know, I think that I definitely have a different relationship with what it means for me to push myself. I think I'm at this point, a lot more mindful and embodied and just like aware, just a lot more gentle, I think. And it actually, after a couple years of having no choice but to be a bit more gentle on myself, actually feels good to have that be the default almost. And yeah, I think that is like, a silver lining that comes out of a struggle, a long-term
Hmm.
struggle. And I think most of us could probably be a bit more gentle on
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm skipping ahead a bit, but I really just love this topic because a lot of people that I talk to, myself included, end up walking away feeling some sort of gratitude for this whole experience. And it's not that anyone should be grateful for becoming unwell. It's a hellish experience, and you don't need to be. But I think when we learn these things, many of us seem to say or experience, I was getting my validation from external things, not
Yeah.
internal.
Yeah.
And my value was based on things that I realized I actually didn't want to attach those things. And
Hmm.
it also forces us to take a look at the way we're taking care of ourselves. And I think many of us realized that we weren't taking care of ourselves. So you
Yeah.
can't help but come out the other side with a whole new toolkit of, self-confidence and self-care skills.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, some people maybe were fine before. I've talked to some people, they're like, I had a great life before. I loved who I was. I'm not trying to become anyone new. I just want to be that person again, which
Yeah.
is fine also.
Yeah. Totally. And I think I definitely, there relate to that feeling of like, oh, I just want before back so badly. I want to be able to get up, go to the pool, have a good day, feel really focused, get a good sleep, whatever. But it was just not the reality for so long, and it's still not really. I'd like to think that some permanent evolution has happened. I would look at it as an evolution, like as a growth, as a result of having to live my life differently. I don't think I was doing a good job of taking my care of myself prior to getting sick. So for me, it functioned as like a really long and loud wake up call. It's like, okay, I can't ignore this because it's not going away. I relate to lots of things differently. Like, I think I value rest in a much more holistic way. It's not something that I want to just like really like just like schedule in. It's like, I'm gonna like really sink into this and enjoy it, and it's important and I
Mm.
value it, and I'm gonna take time for it, and I'm gonna take it when I need it. And that feels good. It almost feels like empowering because it's very much, I think it's, in a cultural sense, I don't know that we are set up to value resting. I think there's other
Hmm.
things we're set up to value, we're taught to value, like in a productivity sense. But so I think valuing rest and feeling worthy when I'm resting or just like having a slow day is something that is coming from inside of me. It's like something that I'm choosing and that I can identify as something that I need and want and enjoy and value. And that feels good. It feels empowering.
It's too bad there isn't another way for us to be stopped to learn these things. Because these are such
Oh,
great
yeah.
tools for life. It's just, why do we have to go through hell
Yeah.
to get there? So when you were unwell and you realized that rest and conventional things weren't getting you better, what did you do? Did you start seeing doctors, or what happened from there?
I, yeah, I did try to see doctors, and I think, had some experiences that I think many people can probably relate to. I felt dismissed. I felt there were times when I was, well, very blatant assumptions made about, what my lifestyle is based on my age. Just like, some doctors were assuming that I was just inherently an unhealthy person, that I ate unhealthy, that I work, certain types of shift work and stuff. It was a bit odd, some of my experiences. But so that kind of like, I'll be honest, deterred me from doing that for a while. So I saw a naturopath for like 8 or 10 months, and I think the most I got out of it was just like validation, to be honest. Like I think that it was really important for me to be speaking to somebody with health and medical experience that believed what I was saying. And they did actually identify what I was experiencing as chronic fatigue syndrome. We explored lots of supplements. I don't think anything really specifically stood out for me as like being especially helpful, other than vitamin D and iron, because like I've been, blood work. I'm a low iron person, so that was like pretty like that one was like a no-brainer. Like I need to take that, and it did help a bit. Other than that, for me, I guess I did get a recommendation from the naturopath to just increase protein on like a daily, weekly basis. And I know like plant-based works for a lot of people, but that was not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like another one of the things I found that was like, this is so undeniable that this isn't helping, because when I was suggested to eat like animal protein, like for me it was usually like fish or chicken daily, like the size of my palm at least daily. And as soon as I started doing that, I noticed a difference. It was very undeniable. Like if I skipped that part of my meal any day, I would wake up feeling especially depleted. So I had to listen to that. And I think over time, as I've gained back some stamina and I think my body has gotten some of the rest it's needed, I find that I can have a more diverse diet now. Like I don't need to like be hyper vigilant about getting a specific protein source at dinner time every night. So that has shifted. But it was very like obvious in the beginning, in the first like year, that my body was needing something there, that I don't know, it was absorbing it more efficiently, or it was just like more dense. I don't really know. Those would be my guesses. But yeah, I had to listen to that. So
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And the more people I talk to, the more I appreciate how we really just have to experiment and listen to our body. But I like what you said about how, it's a little bit different now than it was then, because I think it changes over time too. So what was good for us 2 years ago, 10 years ago, isn't necessarily what's going to work now. When I was unwell, plant-based worked really well for me with my recovery. I noticed, kind of like you, when you started adding in animal protein, noticing immediate results. I was noticing immediate results by removing it. But I think I had been overeating animal products my entire life, copious amounts, 3 times a day. And I think my body just needed a break. So, for a couple of years, plant-based worked really well. I think it was just like a rebalancing and a fixing my gut and a kind of like a really long cleanse. And now I think I'm somewhere about where you are, where I seem to do best with just, little bits here and there. But it's nice to hear people talking about it this way, because I think it can be so confusing for so many of us, because there's so many people out there saying, this is what your diet must be. Like, it must be this, that, or that. And then it's just like, and people try these things and they feel worse. And
it's definitely a lot of trial and error. And I think trial and error with diet is one of the most challenging things, like especially when there's a specific problem you're trying to address, like whether it's a gut problem or fatigue or whatever it is. It's like, it's very laborious, but I think, I don't know, even if you can make like small tweaks here and there, like, like a small achievable goals, like it doesn't have to be everything all at once. Just, give something small a try, like one small adjustment, and see how it goes. Like, I think that, it's possible that something is gonna make a big difference, like it did for myself and for you. Like certain things are more obvious and other things are more subtle and make, a subtle long-term difference, or you might not be able to really identify what it was exactly that made the difference, but it's worth the trial and error, even though I know it's challenging.
Yeah. And there's a lot of habits and addictions around food, so it can be tough. It's not such an easy thing to cut things out. So when your doctor said chronic fatigue syndrome, had you heard of it? What did you think of this diagnosis?
Yeah, by the time my doctor diagnosed me, I had already talked to my naturopath about it. I'd researched online and admittedly was in a bit of denial because, I read this and identified with everything, like mostly everything, like the PEM, like the fatigue, the like stressors that brought it on. But I was like very like, when you're just like reading online, I think sometimes it's easy to see all of the like, there's no recovery, there's no treatment, there's no cure. And I was like, no, this can't be it. No, this can't. I can't believe this.
We're going to keep shopping. Not this one.
Yeah. But yeah, so by the time my doctor diagnosed me, I had been really aware. I wasn't surprised. I think at that point I was just like, I need a diagnosis. I was really, really, really struggling with like work, thinking about quitting my job. It got pretty dire for a period of time, like especially like the fear of like, losing like what is a big part of my stability. And I know that, some people don't have a choice, and I think that's also valid. Part of me sometimes looks back at like some of like the worst phase that I had, and I think that it would have been a perfectly fine choice for me to not work. But I did get some supports from my doctor, like some short-term supports in terms of like my workload and the sorts of things I was doing at work, which was the only reason that I kept my job, to be honest. It kind of just gave me enough time to like kind of like pull myself together enough to just kind of like take a different path. That was luck. I only see that as luck. Like I was not far away from quitting my job, and that would have been a difficult thing to deal with.
Quite a few people reaching out to me asking me like, do I have to quit my job? Do I have to quit university to get better? And of course I have no idea, and I never tell anybody. I just know my own experience. And kind of what I come back with is we're all individual. I'm not sure. I think it's going to depend on so many things in your level of health and the supports that you have and how you're managing your stress and the type of work that you're doing. But it's just nice to see that you were, with modifications, able to make all this recovery, and you didn't have to quit your job, because that's a tough one. That's
And you're right, it's just so circumstantial. Like there's, other, factors in my life, that, other supports I had as well. And I think I was really fortunate for my life to be put together in a certain way at a certain time. Like, again, it was just luck, time of my life. It was just like, I just happened to, have a supportive partner and, a place to live that was a comfortable place to live. And like, that's just luck. Sometimes that's just kind of luck. We don't always have those things.
So you kept working. I feel like it's a fairly safe assumption that every day was a struggle, and this was like, what was that like for you when it was at its worst? How were you managing, or what did your average day look like?
Oh gosh, at its worst, I was getting about 2 hours of sleep a night. I was waking up exhausted, like physically, mentally. Like on a bad day, like if I was experiencing a crash, wouldn't be able to go to work. I would have to take time off, because like I wouldn't even be able to like sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Like I just like this profound inability to like focus or put my attention on anything. Like it just like caused me pain, and like physical pain and like fog and stress. It was almost like, like any kind of stimulus was just, you could like feel just the stress in my head and my body and everything. Yeah, so that would be like, and I could be out for like a couple days. I could like get up and make myself like, put myself some food together, but just like for me it was a lot of like the stimulation, like any kind of stimulation was painful. Like on a broader day to day, like I would struggle through work. I would work through like, pretty bad chronic headaches. and fatigue, and like, you know, just kind of forcing myself to focus, forcing myself to go at, you know, it was a pretty fast-paced job at the time. I just kind of had, like, I felt that I had no choice. It's like, I don't know whether or not there was choice there. It's, you know, that's probably a broader conversation. And I think, yeah, there was definitely, in the very beginning, it was like planning about a 72-hour window around like any single errand or activity. Like if I was going to go out to do groceries, it was like, okay, today's a rest day, tomorrow's groceries, and then 2 days from now is a rest day. It was like that kind of planning. I would say it was that bad for probably 4 months, 4 or 5 months, like that kind of like pacing to that degree. Like I think the pacing over time could get a bit more like, okay, I can do one thing a day. I can do 2 things a day if I don't do them back to back. Like it definitely changed and got better.
How did you find communicating this to the people in your life, people at work, you know, family, friends, whoever the people are that are close to you? How did that go for you? What was their level of understanding?
No one in my life had heard of it, even including myself, until I started researching. My partner, like, sort of witnessed the decline, like witnessed me feeling good, and then witnessed like this kind of slow but rapid decline. So she was kind of like a witness to that shift and like the kind of the difference between what I was able to do and then what I was suddenly not able to do. But she was a good support. She was always like kind of like more hopeful and positive than myself in the beginning, which was actually good to have around, because I think I was definitely getting scared that things were not going to get better, and then I would, you know, be in a pretty bad place for a long time. And I didn't really like honestly tell too many people. Like I didn't communicate much at work because, you know, I was kind of aware of, you know, the protocol. Like if there's any kind of accommodation needed, I needed to go through my doctor, and then I needed to go through like a certain process. Like there was, like I knew that was the situation, so I just didn't mention anything at work until I was actually able to get an accommodation, and even then, just my, like, you know, it was a nice private professional process. Like no one really needs to know any details. So that was good. Like I wouldn't really want to like honestly be too transparent at work. Like it was nice to keep that kind of private. A couple friends sort of knew what were going on, but mostly like my social circle just got really small. You know, have like in the worst couple years, probably like about a year and a half, 2 years, like I was just seeing like my partner and 2 close friends, because I just wasn't able to like plan ahead in any capacity. Like anything I did had to be like, I had, you know, check in with myself on the day of, like, am I up for this? Am I up for seeing someone? Am I up for going out? Like planning ahead was just a recipe for like last minute canceling. And like not everyone appreciates that. So I think I just kind of eliminated, out of necessity, that kind of navigating those situations. Again, that's like has since shifted, having a bit more energy and being able to like look in, you know, like a couple days, even a week in advance, and being like, oh yeah, I can plan a thing. How awesome is that? It was a small network of people that were aware of what was going on, but I think it was, you know, it's still hard for people to really understand. I think I notice, like, even when people are trying, I notice like just like it's really difficult for people to actually understand what it is and like what the symptoms are and like how it impacts you on a day-to-day. Which is understandable, because like I had no idea until I was going through it. So
it is a weird paradox too, isn't it? Because it's a time in your life where you probably need more support because you're going through hell, but then that support is exhausting. Like maintaining these relationships is really just like, I don't have the bandwidth for that. So it's a weird, like, I want it, but no.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was, you know, looking for more social interaction and like looking for more friends, like I was pretty quick to like communicate to people that you know, I have chronic condition and sometimes it impacts my energy, so like sometimes planning is difficult. And like, yeah, people seem like the people that I was interacting with that I communicated that with were like good about it, and actually even, opens up conversations sometimes about like, oh yeah, I understand. I deal with this thing and kind of have the same kind of situation. So like opened up some conversations in certain situations.
That's really nice to hear. And I,
Yeah.
I know I didn't do this. I suspect a lot of us don't. I just didn't want to have to try and explain it to people. And then there's so much guilt around canceling things because they don't get it, and you think you just look flaky. And it seems so obvious. Just tell people what's going on, but it's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do. So,
It's not. No.
I commend you for doing that. I think that's very wise.
I don't know. Being upfront was pretty okay for me, so I'd recommend giving it a shot.
I think that's such a good point too about how it gives other people permission. It's normalizes sharing these kinds of things, because I never really talked about it, but now when I just talk about my life, I talk about my YouTube channel and, my book and things that I'm passionate about, which forces me to talk about my health conditions. And just like you're saying, so often then they open up to me things that I'm sure they never would have told me had I not opened that door. So yeah, maybe it's not as scary as we make it out to be. So Aron, I'm so happy that you have made so much progress and are not in that terrible place that you were. So if you were to summarize the things that helped you get to where you are now at this about 90% recovery rate, what would you say the top things are?
Changing my diet, just kind of like listening to what I needed and allowing that to change slowly. Pacing strategies definitely were very, very significant for me. And kind of what we've discussed a little bit, just reevaluating what like my values are and what self-worth means to me, and allowing that to mean something different, and allowing that to mean something that wasn't causing me harm when I was going through the worst of the chronic fatigue syndrome symptoms. So one of the other big pieces for me that was really helpful was actually finding your support group on Facebook. I found your YouTube videos first, and then I think I just lucked out one day and you like wrote on Instagram that you have a Facebook group. And I joined it, and I didn't realize how isolated I was feeling before I started interacting with people on your Facebook group. Like even with the support of like my partner and a couple close friends, like it was still like a really significant piece of the recovery puzzle for me, is like interacting with people that were going through something very similar, if not exactly the same thing. And kind of just like humbling as well when you start to just hear about what people's lives were, and it's like, oh yeah, this can happen to anyone. This can happen to people that are just doing their best. And it's just, yeah, it was good. That was really helpful.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's just nice to have that validated that this isn't anybody's fault, and it can be very isolating when you feel like nobody gets it. So yeah, I'll link the group in the video description if anyone wants to come take a peek. But I'm so glad to hear it's been helpful. We work really hard to keep it optimistic and recovery focused. So that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, so those would probably be the things.
It never ceases to amaze me how often it comes up and how many people I talk to who say things like it was, managing my stress. It was looking at the way I was living my life. It was examining my relationships, just internal mindset types of things that were such big pieces of their recovery. I'm always happy to hear it. And then I'm always thinking, like, what are people watching thinking? Because I feel like most of us put a bit of resistance on that initially, or I would suspect. I can't speak for everybody, but it's just like, no, I want to hear that these 3 supplements or whatever help.
I mean, if I could have just taken a supplement and had it be better, like, oh my gosh, I would have done it. But it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
That was the reality for me. It was a lot of really making a lot of adjustments and really slowing down, like being a lot more mindful of what my body was saying to me. And yeah, just it was yeah, just a lot of patience in terms of like building up stamina. I think something that, I had to become really in tune with was the difference between my head telling me to do more or that I'm not doing enough, like an actual thought telling me that, and my body telling me like I feel ready to take on more. And it's like there is a difference between those two things, and I was not in tune with that difference before like getting sick. And I think like through a lot of trial and error and like making the mistake of getting too ahead of myself and listening to that, you're not doing enough, you should be doing more, thoughts, like, like time and time again were kind of getting me into trouble, like bringing on crashes. Yeah, listen to your body. Yeah.
Yeah, another one I hear a lot too, and it seems to hold a lot of us back in our recovery because it's a tough thing to do. It's really tough to override your mind because your mind is stubborn and selfish and impatient.
And loud.
And loud, yeah. And we've had years and years of conditioning where we're like, I can just push through. It will be okay. Despite whatever health crash we've had, it's still in there.
Yeah.
So you've shared a lot already, but I'm just curious what, this has been quite the journey for you. What are some of your biggest takeaways from all of this? Or for people who are watching that are going through something similar, is there anything that you'd want to say to them?
Yeah, I think like, you are still a valuable person if you are not like working or doing the amount of work that you were able to before. Like you're still valuable if you're not doing the amount of physical activity you were able to do before. Like if it's possible to lean into something else where you feel some mobility, like for me it was reading, drawing. I know that's not accessible for everyone, but like if it's possible to lean into something else where you feel mobility, then like allow yourself to do that. Like that's like it's a good thing, and it's okay to like lean into different parts of ourselves.
Well, thank you so much, Aron, for sharing all of this. I really appreciate it. If people want to ask you more questions or find out more, would it be best if they left them in the video comments, or is there some place they can connect with you?
Yeah, the video comments works for me. I can take a look there.
Perfect. Well, wonderful. This has been amazing. I've just loved talking to you. You have such a calming presence. I think I could talk to you all day, and I just want to probe and probe and probe and ask so much more. Yeah,
I think I'm just nervous. So I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
If this is you nervous, you must be really incredible when you're not nervous, because it's like,
well, thank you.
This person's a natural. How are they just so relaxed and just so like, yeah, I do this every day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know people are going to appreciate this so much. And just a huge thank you to everyone who's watching. I have so many more incredible interviews coming up like this. So thank you to those of you who have subscribed. I really appreciate it. I love this community that we're building here. And if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to subscribe. I wouldn't want you to miss out on anything. And it helps me a lot as well. So yeah, thank you again, Aron. Thank you to everyone who's watching.
Thanks so much.
See you in the next video.